Speaking of Memphis, let's get into some of what Adam Silver told everybody as we had the NBA Cup, because a big part of that conversation was about the possibility of expansion. And look, he did say that they will make decisions sometime in 2026. It's long been presumed for years that Seattle and Vegas would be the two front runners in that expansion conversation. But I guess, Caroline, my question is, do we really want expansion? I'm looking around right now at an
Yeah.
NBA where there are certain teams that just there aren't enough teams that I think are great, right? There aren't enough competitive teams at the bottom of this thing. Do we really want two extra teams in this thing? I'm listening to you talk about Memphis, and I'm thinking about some of the lower franchises in the NBA and thinking, if we really want markets added to this, why not consider relocation before considering watering down the talent pool even more?
Yeah, before we talk about expansion and where the NBA would expand, because I know Seattle is going to be the city that everybody looks to. Vegas is going to be a city everyone looks to. My hometown, St. Louis, would love a basketball franchise in St. Louis. There's plenty of cities that I think would be great NBA cities. But before we talk about expansion, let's ask ourselves the question, is that a good idea? What does that do for the association? Is the NBA a better league and a better product because they have more teams? I don't know. And I frankly don't think so. Adam Silver has even talked about how do you divide, the league revenue up between 32 teams versus 30 teams. We've got some struggling franchises in the NBA. I look at the New Orleans Pelicans, which it hurts me to say, spending 4 years of my life in Louisiana. But look, I worked in a sports department in a local news station for 2 years, an hour away from New Orleans. Want to know how many stories I did about the New Orleans Pelicans? Zero. I did more stories on former LSU players or former Louisiana high school players playing in teams hundreds of miles away from the city of New Orleans, more than I did about the basketball team in New Orleans. So if you have struggling franchises like the Washington Wizards, I think is a good one. Memphis, there is so much support in the city of Memphis for the Grizzlies. So I'm a little bit hesitant on that one, but there are plenty of franchises across the NBA that are just failing and uninteresting franchises. If they move to Vegas, if they move to Seattle, automatically that's a significantly more exciting franchise with a city that's excited to buy into that team. So I think relocation should be more the conversation beyond expansion.
And these numbers you see here on this Sports Business Journal tweet are important. That moving forward means selling equity in a league that already is sharing an 11 years, $77 billion national media rights deal across 30 teams. Of course, there are entrance fees for joining the league, but it wouldn't offset what that suddenly looks like when you're splitting that two extra pieces of the pie coming out, right? So that's a huge part of it. And also, I think we forget sometimes how difficult expansion is to be competitive. One thing that you have to have. And look, the NHL has figured this out in ways that other leagues haven't. The NHL has been lucky, I think, at times that they put a team in Vegas and that team is immediately successful. If they put a bad team in Las Vegas, where there are so many things to do with your dollar, that team is just going to be forgotten, right? There is an expectation for something that's night in and night out. Sure, Raiders games are filled consistently with visiting teams. That's easy to do because there's only 8 home games, 9 some years, and then everything is about, okay, I'm going to go to Vegas for the weekend and make it this big trip. Well, what are you doing on a Tuesday night game when suddenly it's a random team playing in Vegas? Are there going to be fans from all over the world flocking to that on a Tuesday night in Vegas? I don't think so. So for me, having the opportunity to get an existing franchise to come in also puts you far ahead of the usual expectation of expansion teams, which are terrible from the outset. You can't suck for 5 years and remain relevant in some cities. So the other part of it, too, is that, to your point, the Pelicans, I'm not trying to take anything from anybody. Relocation hurts fans. I understand that.
Yeah.
If you're the Pelicans, you got to look around at some point and say, where can our business thrive the most? This is just business 101. And this is just an unfortunate byproduct of relocation in sports. I have for years done a weekly interview with the Memphis radio. I love Memphis, the city. I love the people of Memphis. I love what the Grizzlies mean to Memphis. I understand all of that. I'm not sure the Memphis Grizzlies wouldn't be a more viable franchise if they were in a different market. I think these things can all exist at the same time. So the hard part of the conversation is that there are certain cities we just want to get the NBA back to. So the easy conversation for Seattle is let's expand. Caroline, I think the tougher conversation, because it breaks people's hearts along the way, but the real conversation is how do we maximize the number of teams we have and find the max markets for them? How can we make sure that we're as successful as possible? Adding 2 more teams is just going to add more tanking, more junk, more terrible basketball that takes years to fix.
Expansion teams are incredibly difficult. It takes several years to really establish yourself in that city, in the league as a whole. What it takes for expansion teams to really kind of stick is championship runs. And that's difficult to do in the early years of your franchise. I mean, we saw Vegas, the Golden Knights do it. We saw the Nashville Predators do it. I mean, the Nashville Predators were at risk of leaving Nashville and going to Montreal or Ottawa or wherever in Canada until they went on a cup run. And now the Nashville Predators are a focal point in the sports scene in Nashville. So it takes time and it takes championship runs. But what Seattle does have is an already existing basketball fan base. If you walk around Seattle, you'll probably see several Supersonics t-shirts and hats and jerseys. Everyone in Seattle is just waiting in anticipation to get their franchise back. Seattle's also a fantastic sports city. So I think if we do want to talk about expansion, understanding that there are several hoops to jump through for expansion teams, the best place to go would be Seattle. I mean, that franchise, that fan base, rather, the people of Seattle have been lamenting the fact that the Supersonics aren't there since the day that they left. So I think if you're going to sign up for the hurdles and the challenges that do inevitably come with an expansion team, any expansion franchise will tell you that it does come with several hoops to jump through. Seattle is the place that feels the easiest to establish themselves because they're already kind of established.
Well, and as long as they can continue to use Vegas for exhibitions and summer league and fun and all of these things, I mean, it feels like there's a real opportunity there. The only trick that we haven't figured an answer to in this is how much does LeBron want to be part of ownership and how much is the NBA willing to bend to make sure that that happens. I'm sure we'll get more updates on that, especially as we get closer and closer to the All-Star game. Eyes are only going to continue to increase.